Well, hello, my little miscreants. Welcome back to Warhammer 2, and today we're watching back a live battle so we can focus a bit more on the decision-making and tactics as they happen in real time. The matchup is Empire and Beastmen, and the Prince of Altdorf is leading his army against the unwashed masses, riding Deathclaw as Imperial Griffin, with the Reikland Runefang and Galmaraz in tow. He's a lord that sits squarely in S tier against most factions in the game, in my opinion, as long as you can keep him healed up, which is why you'll very rarely see any caster but a Jade Wizard supporting him. Which is kinda lame, but it's how the cookie crumbles, I guess. By far the easiest way to ensure you get value out of him is bringing Regrowth and Earthblood. It's really all there is to it. But I wouldn't mind if CA revisited battle speed and healing in Warhammer 3 to find ways to make it not so ubiquitous, not quite so necessary in Game 3. And there are a couple ways you can play the front line against Beastmen. If you're thinking they might go for a Bestigor rush, you can bring 2 or 3 Greatswords and support them with a Warrior Priest, and that can work very well. But a lot of Beastmen players go really wide and cheap with the infantry, so they have more money to swarm your range options and artillery. And in that case, Greatsword cores aren't as strong, especially if they're matched up against a herd of Chaos Spawn, for example, which is a pretty common build as well. So Spears, Sigmar's Sons, and 1 Greatsword in case there happen to be a Bestigor or 2 on the prowl. But the main element of this build is speed. I'd say this is pretty close to a cavalry core. Pistoliers can be extremely good in this matchup, I feel like. They poop on Chaos Spawn, they're difficult to shut down, and they're effective against much of the Beastmen roster because they're also low armor. Knights of the Blazing Sun have a huge charge bonus of 78, also absolutely wrecks low armor troops, and they demolish the Butchers of Kalkengard as well, if you use them wisely, because of course they are weak to fire. You don't have to go this aggressive and high tier with the Cav. You can go wider with Empire Knights, but I like putting enemies into an early grave. Just take them right off the battlefield right away, and that's why I prefer the elites, because their charge bonus is so much better. They just have more killing power overall. So as we get this battle underway, the first thing you want to do against the Beastmen, anytime you're playing against the Cloven Ones in general, look at their army first, figure out, is that a full build? If not, check for Vanguard ambushes immediately. My army is a lot less susceptible to those, because I don't have any artillery or range options on foot, so I can't get caught out, lose the cannon to a rear charge or whatever, but a Centaur rear charge into my Knights or Pistoliers would be very unpleasant, so make sure you do your scouting, look in the woods, make sure there's nothing there that can threaten your rear when the time comes. As I always say, wear that chastity belt, protect your virginity. A Beastman butt pounding ranks pretty low on my how to have a good time list. Now the Brayherd does look pretty full, but it's still worth confirming. So the main force will retreat while the Cav has the look-see out on the flanks. Notice, I also moved Karl Franz out to the most likely side of the ambush so he could reinforce if necessary. But no, there will be no ambush today. And the Beastmen army, on the other side of the battlefield, have a Wildscaster with Savage Dominion, that is the Cygor summon, mounted on a Razorgore chariot, the Butchers of Kalkengard, Great Weapon Minotaurs, the Sons of Goros, 2 Razorgore herd, and of course, Morgur the Shadowgave. Now Morgur has been the most competitive Beastmen pick for a long time now, and as Chaos Spawn have gotten better, and they have over the years, the gulf between him and other Beastmen lords has only grown. I actually do like Khazrak. In almost every battle I see him used, he gets over 150 kills. He has a ton of DPS, but he doesn't have the survivability or the utility that Morgur offers. Chaos Spawn, and especially Beastmen Chaos Spawn with their poison, are quite strong at the moment, so that's a big reason why people like going for Morgur. Now Karl Franz, the best thing he can do in the early stage of a game is try to tear out infantry that isn't supported well. So any Ungor herd or Gore herd that break off from the main battle line, Karl Franz can just go in, pop some buffs, and do some killing. Whatever free damage I can get, I'll just pull them out before any of the mobile stuff, any of the mobile elements like the Sons of Goros or the Razorgore herd close the gap. I'll escape through my own battle line and move back into a good position. Reichsguard moving up to center. That's a clean charge into the Gore herd, dealing some good damage there, and already got rid of the Chaos Warhounds with poison too. So, big thing here, I don't want to get super aggressive with the Pistoliers. The way you use them essentially is kind of like backline patrollers. So any Centaurs, any Minotaurs, any Chaos Spawn, we're going to shadow wherever those are moved and keep the Pistoliers directly behind my own infantry so they're supported well, so his other mobile elements can't dive in on top of them too easily, and just fire in on whatever low armor, high value monster is coming in to fight. So that'll be the Butchers of Kalkengard or the Chaos Spawn summons as they come from Morgur the Shadowgave. Karl Franz is diving in hard now. All of his buffs popped. Reikland Runefang, Galmaraz. We're going straight in on the Minotaurs here, and now Pistoliers have an opportunity to flank around. Earthblood going to catch a bunch of my high-value troops, Pistoliers and the Heavy Cav moving in from the flank, and we'll try to get a sandwich on the Razor Gore herd and the Minotaurs that are fighting in the center. You guys know it well at this point, but unit matchups are everything in Total War. Every battle can be broken down into pockets, into separate engagements, and if you win enough of those minor clashes, you win the war. Hasn't been perfect so far. My first Knights of the Blazing Sun unit got poisoned by the Warhounds, then beat up a little bit, but overall, the engagements have been pretty clean. Flaming Lances and Karl Franz with Galmaraz popped are fighting the Butchers of Kalkengard, exactly what I want. Great Swords fighting a horde of infantry on my left flank is exactly what I want, and Pistoliers shooting Great Weapon Minotaurs and the Sons of Goros on my right flank is also exactly what I want. This is why people bring Morgur, by the way. Any other Beastmen Lord would get run over in 5 seconds by Karl Franz and Deathclaw if they got this overextended, but Morgur will actually be able to survive that for a while and maybe even be able to retreat into his own battle lines. Karl Franz is going to get a little bit of an Earthblood going his way. 2 Pistoliers are flanking out wide to maybe start harassing the Ungor archers in the rear. 2 more being held in reserve alongside the Heavy Cav. Razor Gore herd caught out after the rampage, and the Knights of the Blazing Sun and Reichsguard should be able to finish them off. Now, the Minotaurs got a full surround off on Karl Franz. In a situation where I did not have a Life Wizard and no healing form, that could have gotten really ugly. Fortunately, I have healing. He went down to half HP, but 1 Overcast Regrowth will be able to pretty much get him back up to full. Still though, Beastmen are breaking through the center. They did have a clear-cut infantry advantage, especially backed up by all the monstrous support, but this is where the mobility can really start to shine. Now, in a normal Empire build with handguns or archers, artillery, that kind of thing, the fact that the Beastmen are so strong in the center would be a huge detriment because they'd already be messing up all my range play. But because I have the 4 Pistoliers instead, none of them have been tied down. They're all full HP, and they've all fired well over half of their ammunition at this point in the battle. Sons of Goros are chasing after one of my Pistolier units. They might get shut down for good, but with the arcing fire coming in from the multiple Pistoliers, we'll be able to rack up some good damage on them as well. And Karl Franz is now safe to dive into the center of the Beastmen force. Knights on top of the Ungor archers probably won't get a ridiculous amount of kills in that charge. We need a little bit more help to do that. Bit of a Brave Scream, or Volatile rather, on top of my Pistoliers in the back line. Beastmen are starting to get a little bit desperate, trying to shut down the ranged options here. And yeah, they've still got about 1/3 of their ammunition left, still wrecking these Beastmen herds, and Karl Franz is still in a healthy position. Morgur is isolated, and Karl Franz can dive in on the Brave Shaman on that Chariot. And this is where Chariots can be a massive detriment if you're the Beastmen. Obviously, they give you a lot more killing power, but that immunity to knockdown comes at a terrible price. When Deathclaw is munching on your butt and you're mounted on a Chariot, there's no escape. You'll bear the full brunt of every single attack, and Galmaraz, the Skull Splitter active, Brave Shamans cannot survive against that kind of onslaught for long. And now it's just cleanup time. The Cav is all in the rear. Morgur is fully surrounded. Army losses kicks in, and that is going to be your battle. And that was a case of, I don't know necessarily that I won on the army selection screen. I don't think the Beastmen build was bad at all, but I certainly had exactly the tools required to deal with it. Knights of the Blazing Sun, amazing versus a huge portion of the Beastmen roster. I love the aggression they can put out. I love the fact that they can go in with that 78 charge bonus and just take units down super fast. Obviously, having the flaming damage is very useful against the Butchers of Kalkengard, which are also kind of a staple pick in this matchup. They're just so good. And what, they have 48 melee attack and 65 melee defense or something. Yeah, they're a very strong monstrous infantry unit. So what you'll typically see from the Beastmen, actually, a lot of time you'll see them go for a full Chaos Spawn type of build. But this kind of Pistolier army is also quite good against that kind of army composition as well. So yeah, you'll bring 4 or 5 Chaos Spawn, maybe including, or not including, either one, the Morgur Chaos Spawn summons. But 4 Pistoliers, you put 1 on each of the Chaos Spawn, and you'll watch those models start dropping very quickly. They have no armor. Pistoliers are great in that kind of situation. As long as you can protect your rear with a lot of your own heavy cav, you should be in relatively good shape. The big thing here, of course, is keeping Karl Franz alive, which is easier said than done. The scary thing about going for any kind of dragon or griffin play against the Beastmen is that they are so good and have so many tools for catching them out and preventing them from ever taking off again. Where the Warhounds come in, where the Razorgore Herd come in. They have so much mass, so much poison, so much speed, they can prevent your high-value single entities from escaping. And if you lose Karl Franz and you lose your Terror, you're going to be in for a rough time. But yeah, as I said, there are multiple ways the Empire can play this particular matchup. You can go for a heavy metal type rush build. I think Greatswords backed up by a Warrior Priest of Sigmar match up pretty well against Bestigors when they have the Shield of Faith and the Hammer of Sigmar, the plus 26 melee attack buff, and the word saves will allow them to trade upwards into and possibly even beat Bestigors, who got their charge bonus off, which is pretty crazy in and of itself. But I personally prefer going for the highly mobile type builds where you don't have to worry about your back line as much. Beastmen, where they really shine is shutting down artillery and ranged options, as we well know. So if you don't bring any, if you don't allow them to dive into the rear and easily get at your range stuff, well then your Pestilers are going to be way easier to keep online because they have 90 plus speed, and they have the Parthian shot. You have Karl Franz to support them. You have the heavy cav to support them. You allow the infantry fight to maybe not go your way, but one great sword there will still trade well into a lot of Beastmen infantry. And then after that, use the heavy cav, the cycle charging, Karl Franz diving in on the lords and the heroes, and you basically let that carry you to a victory. So worked out pretty well that game. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you all in the next one. Indie Pride signing out for now. Have a good one, guys.